On today's show, the Hawks lose in very familiar fashion on this Monday evening to the Dallas Mavericks. We'll get into all of the things that felt so familiar in this loss for Atlanta, what went well to the extent that it actually did, what went poorly, et cetera, and we'll get into all of that right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1854 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening, deep in the night here into Tuesday morning. And today's podcast is sponsored by the folks at BILT Rewards. Start earning points on rent that you are already paying by checking out joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That is joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Please check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. We're on audio platforms like Apple and Spotify and Overcast. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you are watching it on that platform. And please do me a favor and subscribe to the show on audio and video platforms to support the podcast. Today's show, we'll be diving into what became a 129-119 loss for the Atlanta Hawks at home on Monday to the Dallas Mavericks. And I have to say at the top of the show, it's a lot of deja vu. If you've heard this episode before, you probably haven't heard this episode in particular before, but certainly this kind of show recently on this podcast. It was a very, very familiar result for the Hawks from, honestly, the entire way through, as we'll get into. It was their third straight loss to have the Hawks fall to 7-11 on the season. And for me, the worst of the three losses that the Hawks have had now in a row. Dallas is a better team than Chicago, who the Hawks lost to on Friday, but this came at home on full rest against an opponent on the second night of back-to-back in Dallas, and they were also missing a star player in Luka Doncic and another starter in Klay Thompson. And all of that said, the Hawks were favorites, not huge favorites at FanDuel in this game, about 2.5, 3 points. But still, this is the worst of the three losses, and not quite the worst loss of the season or anything like that, but certainly a maddening result. And again, so familiar how it transpired. It was a roller coaster in the first half. The Hawks were up by 13 points in the first quarter. Give that lead up, then had a 12-0 run to close the first half to go up by 6 at halftime. They gave the lead back in the third quarter. And then, quite frankly, in my opinion, the Hawks should have been up by double digits in this game, probably in the second half. But instead, they were down by 1 going into the fourth quarter. And they were not in a position, because of that, to withstand the Kyrie Irving barrage that came in the fourth quarter. Irving did superstar stuff, honestly, down the stretch. He had 16 points on 8 shots in the fourth quarter. And most of them were well contested. That's going to happen sometimes when you're playing against a Hall of Fame level player like Kyrie. But the problem is everything that happened before that, and the margins were not big enough for the Hawks because they were not good enough other times during the game. Again, it should have been up big before that. And in a game they should have won, that ended up being the difference, basically, in the end of this game. So first, I will plug the show I did yesterday, actually, on the show. I published an episode on Sunday evening into Monday. It's episode 1853 of the podcast, in which I discussed extensively how I believe strongly that the Hawks offense has been the bigger problem this season than the defense, which is not always a mainstream thought, but I use the numbers to back that up. I think that's the evidence is pretty clear there. And I said that now in part because I want to plug the show, but also because tonight followed a very similar script to the rest of the season on both ends of the floor. I am not glossing over the fact the Hawks once again got torched from three-point range on defense. That does matter. I'll come back to it in a second because it obviously is a big factor. But in an overall sense in this game, the offense was once again worse than the defense for Atlanta, even if that's not what the big storyline was and the way it was being discussed, all that fun stuff. So in an effort to get yelled at, I'm sure, this is what I'll just present. The Hawks' offensive rating in this game was 105.3, according to NBA.com. That's the official record, 105.3 offensive rating. For reference, that would be the second worst offense in the league this season, if that was the number that you had. That's a terrible offense in the NBA. Yes, they scored 119 points. So if you look at raw data versus efficiency, you're going to say, oh, it wasn't offense, it was defense. I'm telling you, based on a per possession basis and the way that these things are measured, the pace was incredibly fast in this game. They were not good on offense. Full stop. They were not good on offense. They were not even close to average on offense. They were bad offensively in this game. There were some positives. They had a 12% turnover rate. That's actually excellent. That was an area that I talked about yesterday as well to improve on. They actually did that in this game. They had 32 assists. That's actually really good as well. They took 42% of their shots at the rim. That is in the 89th percentile. That's a really good number. Usually, when you get to the rim, that's usually a positive indicator. But as both Quinn Snyder and Trae Young said post-game, they had traded 2s for 3s on defense. And that's bad process in general, unless you are shooting incredibly well on 2s. And they definitely did not do that in this game. In fact, they shot 61% at the rim. That's strongly below average. It sounds like a great percentage. When you're at the rim, you want to be shooting 70+%. That's not good. It's well below average. They attempted only 31 threes in this game. That's not enough. And they also shot them very poorly. They were 9 of 31, 29%. That's obviously bad news for your offense. They did shoot pretty well on floater range attempts in this game, which pushed them up to a legitimately solid 56% in the game on all 2-point attempts. But in the game overall, they had 55% true shooting, which is the best way to measure overall shooting efficiency, and that is well below the league average. You can't get away, simply put, with being bad from 3 and being bad from the rim at the same time, or at least it's very hard to. And the Hawks were bad at the rim and bad from 3. They were also flummoxed by a zone defense in the first half, to the point where Trae actually said post-game that he called it a high school defense, and he was bothered by the fact that the Hawks were not able to figure that out for a while. Eventually they did, but that was just one more thing that happened here on the way to the offense not being very good this season and also tonight. We can talk about the defense and three-point defense until we're blue in the face, and I certainly will do that in a second. But there is no version of this Hawks team that is good or even like decent, 500-ish this season with this level of offense in recent days. For reference, beyond tonight, they now have 5 consecutive games in which they've had a below-average offensive efficiency. 5 games in a row. Unsurprisingly, they are 1-4 in that stretch. And the one game they actually won was against Sacramento in a game where they were legitimately awesome defensively in that game, and then played a team that was really shorthanded in the Kings, and they did a lot of little things to win that game. It's hard to win when you are below average offensively, especially when you're built to be an offense-first team, which the Hawks kind of are. So before I get into the defense a little bit in more detail, it was also a game in which the bench was a huge problem for the Hawks, and it's been that way all season long. In recent years, last year, previous years, sometimes they've been pretty good with the bench. Depth should be a strength of this team right now when they're at full strength. Like, for instance, when you have Bogey and Hunter and Okongwu off the bench, you should be in good shape with your second unit. But they got killed tonight, and that's been a theme of the entire season. This is actually kind of a crazy set of stats. The Hawks have about a plus 13 net rating, which is uber elite, in the minutes with Trae, Dyson, Jalen Johnson, and Clint Capella on the court together. Those 4 guys have been the starters all year long, and they've been really, really good when they play together. And when they're not together in that foursome, they've been awful, basically, this year. And it's not always that linear, but it actually has been that linear. The bench has been very bad, and that was even more magnified tonight. Then, as a bridge to the defense, the Hawks had a 115 defensive rating on Monday night. Is that great? No, it's not. But as I did with the offense, when I said that the offense tonight would have been 29th in the league in offensive rating this season, the context will tell you that the Hawks' defensive rating tonight at 115 would be like 19th, 20th, something like that defensively this year. Again, not great, but the Hawks should not be losing by 10 points when they have that level of defensive efficiency. This is a team that's, once again, built around their offense and have been for a while. Now, are they built more defensively than they have been in previous years? Yes, but when your best player is Trae Young and your third best player or fourth best player is Bogey, like, offensive efficiency needs to be better. So anyway, defensively, they were okay in this game. Okay. Does it feel that way? No, but there's a reason why I watched the film for you, look at the stats for you, and present the actual nuance and context, because, yes, I understand they gave them a lot of points in the fourth quarter. All that stuff's going to matter, but they were actually not that bad defensively in this game, and offense was a bigger problem. Everyone is already tired of this, including me. I will raise my hand about that, so I'll be quick on this. The Mavs were 16 of 35 from 3 in this game. That is 46%. 6 of 10 from Najee Marshall and Spencer Dinwiddie in this game. That's very on brand. It seems like every night right now, the Hawks have a secondary player that goes crazy on them from 3. It was 2 guys tonight for Dallas. Kyrie's barrage is different in that he's a legitimate star player. He went nuts. There isn't that much you can do about that necessarily, but you allowed 46% from 3 in this game, and they actually did a good job limiting attempts. 35 attempts is actually what they want to do defensively. It's a pretty good number, and that's way better. But unfortunately, there was some bad shooting luck, which did happen in this game. They also allowed some good looks, as they have this season, but they won the turnover battle. They rebounded well defensively. To give up about a league average defensive rating when the opponent shoots 46% from three usually means you're playing decent defense. But in the end, the fourth quarter got away from them, to be sure. And I promise you understand that people are not going to want to hear that. I promise you, I understand. It's a results-based league. And the second half numbers are pretty gross, in part because of Kyrie, but also, as I'll talk about later, the Hawks did it. The Hawks tried late in this game. They're probably going to lose anyway, but they went to a high variant strategy with no center down the stretch, and they got killed defensively with that group. Not surprisingly, but they got killed. There were also individual guys that struggled in this game. Bogey was, I thought, atrocious defensively in this game, for example. So, again, I'm not saying they were great defensively, but when you line it up, they were, when you kind of adjust for the league average and all those, the real factors, they were actually worse on offense than defense in this game. And just to say this out loud, they always feed on each other. When you're bad on offense, you don't make shots, and that puts your defense in bad spots. Same on defense. If you can't get stops, your offense is taking the ball out of the net every time. That's actually harder. So it's never one thing or the other necessarily. But overall, I strongly believe, just like it's been all season long, that the issue tonight in number one on the list was the offense. And also, just broadly speaking, not winning the first three quarters by more than they probably should have been winning. Like they should have been winning this game after three quarters. And that kind of gives you a cushion to withstand a barrage from Kyrie. It's obviously hard to do that. Kyrie was awesome in that stretch in the fourth quarter, as we'll come back to later on. But the rest of the game was more the problem for me. And look, it's a bad loss. I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. I get it. Even if the Hawks were only small favorites in the betting market, it's a game they probably should have won, and a game they needed to win, quite frankly, because they have some tough games coming up on the schedule. I'll leave it there for now, but I did want to give you the actual analysis that I had on this game, how it happened. And for me, it points to the offense and the frustration levels. I can't blame anybody. Yesterday on the show, if you heard it, I tried to give some context and try to go managing expectations a little bit. I tried that on that show. I still believe what I said on that podcast, but the next day they have a deja vu loss, and it's just as maddening. And I understand people are mad, and I totally understand why, because it was a rough one and a bad loss for Atlanta on Monday. All right. More to come on the show in a second when it comes to the player-by-player evaluation at the end of the podcast, plus how this game unfolded in the middle of the podcast. First, though, a word from our partners on the show. Today's show is brought to you by BILT Rewards. As a PSA for anyone who rents, if you've not heard of BILT, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through BILT. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you in simple terms. There is no cost to join BILT. As a member, you will earn valuable points on rent and also your everyday spending. BILT points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones that you have not heard of yet. There are over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your BILT points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only BILT members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. That is JOINBILT, joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our URL so that they know that we sent you to them. Joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. Start earning points on your rent payments today. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. And now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. And these generous benefits are available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up right now at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, and I'll get to how this game unfolded now. The Hawks led this game 12-4 at the outset. People don't want to hear about that, I'm sure, but Jalen had a pick six early on with a windmill dunk. Jalen Dyson played well in the early going. The Mavs were cold from the floor. The Hawks forced 5 turnovers in the first 5 minutes of this game. Rotationally, it was the same story as it's been recently. 9 guys played. I understand that. I talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show and also on a previous episode. I do understand the calls for Garrison Matthews or Beat Krejci or Larry Nance. I totally get it. The Hawks are running with their top. To me, they have a very clear top 8. That is still the case. The ninth guy was Kobe Buffkin. And by the way, Kobe was actually okay in this game. He was kind of the one guy who didn't play terribly off the bench in some aspect of this contest. But that's what the rotation was in this game. I like the tempo from the Hawks, generally speaking, in this one. They got stops early on. That definitely helped that. There was a bad Mavs challenge early in the game, but there was, I would say the Hawks had some end-of-quarter struggles this season, and that happened in the first quarter. They had a 13-point lead with like 2 minutes to go in the first quarter, and they allowed a 10-0 run to close it up. And again, offensively, that was more of the problem. They were flummoxed by this Dallas Mavericks zone defense, which honestly they should have been flummoxed by. That was bothersome to me that the Hawks were not more prepared for that. Trey referenced it after the game, as did Quinn. They had 4 trips in a row. They just had like no plan, basically. Jalen had one decent drive where he had kind of a bad miss where he tried to make a shot harder than it actually was. But they had turnovers. They were just kind of not comfortable against the zone, which popped in that stretch. On defense, they were pretty good at times, but then Buffkin actually had a good game, but he had a bad three-shot foul, and then Dallas made a couple threes. Still, though, in the first quarter, they allowed 28 points on 30 possessions, which is great defense, but you're only up by 3 because the offense gives out at the end of the quarter. In fact, it was a 23-7 overall run by Dallas to go up, actually, after being down by 13 points. The Hawks, over a 6-minute period, were 3 of 13 from the floor and 3 turnovers. Part of that was against the zone, but it was tough stuff. There was a 3 by Bogey early in the second quarter. Notably here, Bogey had a rough one defensively, but Bogey actually hit a 3 for the 95th straight game. That is now tied for the 6th longest streak in the history of the NBA. So pretty interesting stuff there to monitor for him. Offensively, they played Ricochet at the 4 a little bit in the second quarter. I think because they're still limiting Hunter's minutes a little bit. That's my best guess based on that, because Hunter came in a little bit after that. But once again, as I actually answered this question yesterday on the show, Ricochet played less in the second half than I would have thought, and that's been a theme all year long. They had some bad turnovers at times in the first quarter. They had in the first half. They had 50 points on the first 50 possessions of the game. So 1 point per possession for about a quarter and a half. That's not good, of course. But then in direct contrast to the end of the first quarter, they had a great run at the end of the first half. A 12-0 run in the last 2:20. They got 7 consecutive defensive stops, which led to more pace on offense, etc. They got more comfortable with the zone. They got the ball in the middle of the zone and passed around it. Capella had a great offensive rebound in that stretch and passed it out to Trey for a bucket. And then Trey and Jalen had this nice 2-man give and go bucket in transition. They scored 17 points on the last 10 possessions of the first half, and it was all good, up 6 at halftime, 16 assists, despite not making threes, et cetera, et cetera. Then they go up by 11 early in the third quarter, and it's feeling good anymore. But then there was this notable swing mid-quarter where Ricochet got blocked at the rim by Gafford and led to a 3 by Dallas in transition. It was the right play by Ricochet, I thought, to go to the rim, but just didn't work out. And then the Mavs had an 11-2 run, and then that started the role player explosion. So Dinwiddie had, I think, 3 shots in a row, including 2 like really tough step backs in the third quarter. Alarm bells there. In fact, in the third quarter, Dinwiddie and Najee Marshall had 16 points on like 9 shots. They just went kind of crazy in that third quarter. And then offensively, it was rough for a while. 2 points in like 4 minutes for Atlanta. And because of all that, they're down 1 at the end of the third quarter instead of up by probably 10. By my count, they were really bad finishing around the rim in the third quarter, and that ended up biting them. So they did lead early in the fourth after a 7-2 run. Kobe had a couple of nice possessions defensively against Kyrie Irving, I thought. Took a bump, good contests, etc. But then after the Hawks missed 3 shots in a row, Kyrie hit a really tough 3, and then that kind of got the ball rolling a little bit. Kyrie went pretty nuts, and then offensively, the Hawks had 3 possessions in a row that were really rough, about 7 minutes to go. Bogey got called for offensive foul. Trey turns it over, and then Dyson misses a 3, and Kyrie scores 11 points in like 5.5 minutes. Basically, all of them were on star-level, contested step-backs, fadeaways. Like, it was not like the Hawks have had plenty of issues this year, allowing too many good looks. That wasn't what happened here. Kyrie went pretty nuts, taking tough shots. Tip your cap on some level on that. So because of that, they're down by 8 suddenly, mid-quarter. And the Hawks did score twice in a row after that. And then Kyrie hit another ridiculous 3, like a fading out-of-bounds 3 in the left corner. Overall, they made 5 threes in a row, did Dallas. And that ended up kind of breaking the back to some degree. It wasn't over, but when your opponent makes 5 threes in a row and your only response is making a couple of 2s, that's a 10-point plus swing in their favor, and you're in trouble. So they call timeout, the Hawks did, with under 4 minutes to go, and they're down, I think it was by 6 or 8 at that stage. So they're obviously behind the 8 ball. I think they're down by 8 points. And they go to Jalen at the 5. Now, he was asked about this postgame, and he said part of it was the counter because Dallas was playing Maxi Kleber at center. Notable. I understood Quinn going small and trying to outscore the Mavs at this point in time because the offense had been struggling so badly. I understood the move to do that, but I'll go ahead and tell you this now. It did not work at all. Like, at all. You want to increase variance there, I get it, but they truly had no chance to get stops. And it wasn't like the Mavs were required to make tough shots. Like, before that, they were making tough shots. Kyrie, Dinwiddie, etc., tough looks. And that stretch with no center, there was no resistance at all. They were going right to the rim and scoring on layups. So that was the one difference in this game. The one time they were like actively bad defensively was the very end of this game, and it's because they were playing without a center and with Bogey, and that combination was tough. And then when you're not scoring on a high level, like you're kind of just drawing dead. So they did score right away on that possession after they called timeout and got Bogey in the game. But then the other side of that lineup was just like they gave up so many easy buckets there. They were alive within 6 with like 2 minutes to go, and they had to get a stop. And then Jaden Hardy went right through Bogey at the rim for an easy bucket. And then the Hawks went empty twice in a row on offense, and that was it. So I won't go play by play. There's no reason to do that. But the Hawks ended up actually losing the third and fourth quarters by combined like 14 points. 16 points in the second half. Again, most of that was offensively. Like defensively, they weren't great, but they scored 52 points after halftime. And, what are you going to do? So just to give one more zoom out, we'll get into this in a second when it comes to the on-off stuff. But everyone in the Hawks starting lineup in this game was -1 in the plus-minus or better. Everyone. And again, they lost by 10 points. On the bench, Buffkin was -9, which was just the non-trade minutes. But Bogey was -26. Hunter was -16. McConnell got killed as well. Like, it was the bench, it was the offense, and then a little bit of defense sprinkled in. And again, some hat tip shot making to Dinwiddie, Irving, and Marshall in particular. And that combination, you're in some trouble. And we'll leave it there. All right, more to come in a second when it comes to how individuals played in this game. I'll give some more context on this game beyond that. And then at the end of the podcast, a brief look ahead to the rest of the week, which is not exactly easy for Atlanta on paper. First, though, a word from our partners on the show. Today's show is sponsored by Skims. We all wear underwear every day, but I have to admit that I've not always thought about my choices in that department a ton on a regular basis. I know I'm not alone in that. I'm sure there are people across the board who have not been switching up their underwear all the time. And for those of you that have not heard yet, Skims now offers men's underwear, and I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely worth the hype. They have classic cotton essentials for comfortable everyday wear. And Skims also has stretch options. They're lightweight and never lose their shape, plus a Skims sport collection of lightly compressive base layers engineered to sit seamlessly on workout clothes and for maximum comfort and support. Whether you are a workout warrior or you just want to feel good every day, which is obviously a big thing in the world, Skims has the options that you're actually looking for right now. I can tell you that the reviews are absolutely fantastic. You will also be feeling great when you check out Skims. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. Let them know that we sent you to them. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. If you're looking to actually find the perfect holiday gift for your whole family, Skims also just launched their biggest holiday shop ever. Also available at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, check it all out now at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, we'll dive in now to the rotation and how things played out for individual players in this game. One more time, I would have been supportive of the Hawks trying a combination of the Krejci, Garrison Matthews, Larry Nance Jr. We'll see if they do that. Quinn kind of before the game did allude to the fact that not specifically, but basically said maybe they'll try some other guys in the future. And they didn't tonight. Maybe that'll happen on Wednesday after another loss tonight. Again, on paper, I don't really think that anything is outrageous that Quinn's doing rotationally. I understand that an immediate reaction for fans when things don't go well is to point to rotations in giant quotation marks is the reason that's happening. Nothing that's happened rotationally is indefensible to me. I think that they probably should have played Capella more tonight than he did. That's one thing there. Ricochet maybe a little bit more in the second halves. I have notes for sure, but they're playing the guys that are supposed to play. The guy who played the least minutes out of the 9 was Bufkin, who's their worst player right now, probably. And their second worst player is probably Ricochet. He played the least as well. So, like, I kind of get it. They just need guys to play better and perform better, as we'll get to right now. So I thought, and I think Quinn agreed based on his post-game comments, I thought Bufkin was actually pretty decent in this game. 4 points on 3 shots, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, no turnovers for Kobe. And then defensively, it was pretty solid, I thought. Like, offensively, clearly, without Trey, things drop off. That has been the case all season long. And tonight, they had a 90 offensive rating with Trey on the bench. Undeniable. Like, for all the noise around Trey, and I get it, on some level, the offense just does not function without Trey Young on the floor. They've been terrible all year long, overall, and on offense. And that was the case again in this game when they were -9 in 13 minutes without Trey. That's a very, very, very bad net rating. And offensively, that was most of the problem. But Kobe individually, I thought played well, showed some signs, made some good decisions, was in control. A step forward from him after a couple of rough games before. Okongwu, I thought, was pretty brutal, honestly. He had a good stretch at the beginning of the game. I think when he first checked in, he made 2 or 3 like really under control, nice finishes. And then the rest of the game, he was 2 for 9 from the floor, 0 of 2 from 3, 2 defensive rebounds, did a 5 offensive rebounds that had a block shot, was -19. And look, all season long, it's been a rough one for Okongwu. Like, I think he's shooting 19% from 3, which is not a huge thing because it's only a small part of his game, but that's hurt them, to be sure. And then defensively, it was not great. And offensively, it kind of became like Benny Hill a little bit, like he was dropping passes and missing around the rim. He can't afford to be 4 of 11 from the floor. That's one of his big strengths, actually, over, at least compared to Capella, is that Okongwu was supposed to be the better finisher. He's obviously more skilled than Okongwu, than Capella. That's obviously true. But tonight, like, as it has been all season long, honestly, the gap between Capella and Okongwu has been pretty sizable, I think, this year. Capella's been really pretty good, and Okongwu hasn't. And that was magnified tonight, where I thought Okongwu was pretty bad, honestly, in 22 minutes. Speaking of pretty bad, Bogey. So, Bogdan Bogdanović was good on offense in this game. 18 points on 15 shots, hit 2 threes, 6 of 9 on 2s. Was his normal self. And Quinn said that too post game. I agree. Offensively, he was good. Bogey's defense in this game was like unacceptably bad. And look, there's always a curve with guys that are not great defenders, right? Like, Bogey isn't going to suddenly be Dyson Daniels defensively. But like, there are degrees to this, and I thought it was really actively harmful defensively for Bogey tonight. Maybe that's partially because he's still getting up to speed physically after missing a bunch of time, but he really was getting attacked too. And at the end of the game, most of the time teams try to attack Trey, and that's the way it should be. They should attack Trey. Trey's the worst defender, and most of the time. But by the end of this game, Dallas was going at Bogey with Trey on the court, and that's a good indication of just how vulnerable Bogey was. And I think that was right. I mean, Trey was better than Bogey defensively, pretty obviously, in this game. So Bogey helps the offense. I get why they played him a lot, but they got torched with him on the floor in this game, and part of that was the defense and offensive lead. It wasn't like he was incredible either, just like he was potent enough. DeAndre Hunter has had his worst game of the season, I think, so far. Hunter had 9 points on 12 shooting possessions. Obviously not great there. 4 turnovers as well for DeAndre. Defensively, he was okay, but offensively, he just was poor in this game. He had been playing really well before this, but in 31 minutes, I think it's tough for the Hawks when Hunter and Bogey are both not good, and that was the case here. That's the short version. Ricochet, 17 minutes, again, didn't come back in late, was +6 in the game, not because of him necessarily, but 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He was all right. I thought in this game, he was like a couple of rookie moments offensively, but 1 of 5 from 2 is not great. He had one where he got blocked at the rim by Gafford, but it was a good take, good aggressive move from him, hit a 3. He's still a rookie, and like, I think there's some pretty irresponsible like bust talk happening right now on social media that I've seen. Like, everybody take a deep breath. Rookies are bad. I get it. But he's not playing super duper awesome. Like, he's a rookie, and I'm saying that. Is he one of their best 5 players? Absolutely not. I get why they're starting him, but he's probably like their 10th best player right now, and that's okay. He's a rookie, but he wasn't the problem tonight. Clint Capella, I thought was good. +11 in the game, by far the best for the Hawks. 12 points, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, a steal in 22 minutes. I thought he probably should come back in the game a little bit early in the fourth quarter. There are offensive constraints with Clint. That is still the case, but the on-off data supports Clint being their best center this year. So does my eyes, honestly. Defensively, he was good in this game. I think if you were grading on which player played the best individually compared to their normal baseline, he might have been the answer. I thought Clint was quite good in this game. Dyson had a pretty good game, actually, overall. 17 points on 14 shots, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, as he almost seems to do. 6 of 10 on 2s, 1 of 4 from 3. Did a pretty good job on Kyrie. When Kyrie was going off, it wasn't really on Dyson, and even when he was taking the good shots late in the game he was making, he was making impossible shots. And overall, Kyrie had 32 points on 30 shots. That's actually good defensively, just not in the fourth quarter. I thought Dyson was good. So overall, like, he was not the problem at all in this game. I'm sure people will, like, that didn't watch, will say, oh, Kyrie had 32 points on Dyson Daniels. I would recommend watching the game more. I thought Dyson did a good job defensively, and offensively was fine. Jalen Johnson had a big game stat-wise, 28 points, 11 rebounds, led the team in both categories, 3 assists for Jalen as well, 3 steals, 3 turnovers. He was fine. I think offensively he was effective for the most part. A couple of weird, and I had this stat earlier that I shared on Twitter. I won't share it again now in the same depth, but Jalen's rim frequency and rim accuracy has gone down this year, and his floater range shots have gone up. He's settling too much for me. Now, part of that is that he's playing in some not great spacing lineups, but Jalen too many times this year has gone to these like crafty, difficult swinging finishes where he could just go through people because he's a hyper athlete. And there was probably 3 of those tonight. He was still 10 of 14 on 2. So like, that's obviously good. I'm not complaining about that at all. It's just that a couple of those moments. And then defensively, not his best all year long, honestly. Like, there's flashes still, but I think that Jalen, and I think even Quinn said it kind of quietly tonight from the podium, like there were a couple of rotations that he missed. It just hasn't been great, but I thought he was good. It wasn't like he was bad in this game at all. It's just that he defensively is leaving a little bit desired for now. Trae Young had an interesting game. Trae had 18 points on 15 shots, which is fine for him. Not great, but fine. 16 assists for Trae. 3 turnovers. Like, you have to take that. The passing was incredible, as it always is for Trae. He didn't have it inside the arc. He was 3 of 8 inside the arc, but he was 2 4 from 3. The floaters deserted him this year. Let's see if he gets it back. He was a little bit passive in the fourth quarter. Like, I saw people getting mad about that. Like, Trae at the moment is not going to be able to like just cook you off the dribble and score a ton. I would have liked him to be a little bit more aggressive offensively in the fourth quarter. But the notion that he was bad in this game is kind of silly. He competed defensively. You can't fix 16 assists. Like, that's obviously a huge number. So like, he wasn't incredible, but he was totally fine in this game, basically. So yeah, we'll leave it there for now. But it was certainly a roller coaster of a game. And like I said, it was deja vu all over again for Atlanta. And I don't use that term lightly. Some people might just be like, all right, no podcast tonight. I'm just going to talk about this. I don't do that. I'm going to be here every game that I possibly can to talk about it. And I think that I might miss 1 or 2 over the course of the season just because of like day job stuff, or that makes it impossible. But I don't take days off. People are saying that after the game. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, similar to the season so far, maddening, frustrating. I would just try to encourage you to not panic too much, but I get it. This is still a transition season for the Hawks, but when you're watching the team lose in maddening fashion, I don't expect everybody to be like, oh, everybody's just fine, everything's going well. So I totally get it. From here, the Hawks have a tough pair of tests. So that makes this even worse. Like, I don't think it's good this year in particular to go like every single game is this like huge indictment. But part of why they probably need to win this game is that they play the Cavs now twice in 3 days. They go to Cleveland on Wednesday to face the 17-1 Cavs, and then they come home and play the Cavs again on Friday in the NBA Cup. Look, I'm not saying the Hawks can't sweep the Cavs, but getting a split would be a great outcome, let's just say. The Cavs are not as good as 17-1 indicates, but they are a lot better than the Hawks right now. So you're looking at a situation where that's an uphill battle this week for Atlanta. Wednesday again is the first game, and then Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon on the Cup day. After that, it's a little bit easier on the schedule. Charlotte and New Orleans, and then Milwaukee. But still, a tough sledding. And if you go by the projections, the Hawks could be 7-13 on a 5-game losing streak in a few days. So that's obviously not great. That's not where you want to be, and you don't want things to spiral away from you. On the bright side, for my optimists out there, that's not really the way that I live my life necessarily. But if you're trying to find optimism right now, the Hawks are still, even with this entire swoon, 2 games out of 5th place in the East. So, like, the season's not over by any stretch. That's why people saying that tonight. Like, it's kind of silly, obviously. But, game that they need to win tonight. No way around that. And you want to certainly improve from here. There's more analyzation to be done about the way this is all gone so far. Hopefully you'll take something away from what I've said either yesterday or today or whatever, get some nuance about this. But in the end, not great for the Hawks. As a programming note, unless something crazy happens on Tuesday, I'm not going to have a show. It is a holiday week. I'm still going to do 4 episodes this week. I did a show yesterday. Tonight, I'll have a podcast after the game on Wednesday and a game after the game on Friday. So I'm not like taking vacation this week, but probably one less show than usual given the Thanksgiving break and the holiday. But if something necessitates a show, I will go ahead and do one. If there's injury or whatever, I'll do that. But in the meantime, enjoy your holiday week, Thanksgiving festivities, family stuff, etc. Again, I will have a show after the game on Wednesday, so please stay tuned. Please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, Overcast, etc., Amazon Music. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you're watching it, and please subscribe on audio and video, and ratings and reviews appreciated as well. Please follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there as well at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, and please follow my non-podcast work about the Hawks at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, that's all I have. Thanks for listening, everybody. I very much appreciate it, and we'll see you all after the game on Wednesday.